welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a special guest, friend of the pod, Darrius Marcellin. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you, guys.
So Darrius is a former soccer player, model, actor, entrepreneur, and now newfound father. So we brought him onto the podcast to talk about his journey and kind of see where he's at and have some fun while we do it.
Let's do it.
Yes,
The
sir.
first question, as always, Darius, is how's the sleep? How you sleep? How'd you sleep last night? How you feeling right now?
I don't want to be that person who everyone like frowns at and like, "Ugh," but to be honest, it hasn't been too bad.
I
I
like that.
woke up. Let's keep it real. Last night I woke up at oh no, I got up at 6:15. Romeo
Okay.
sleep. We went to bed at 6:30. He tossed a little bit at like 8, and then we checked him in at like 6:15 in the morning. Some days he does wake up a little bit later, and I would say we're blessed. I've heard a lot of
Definitely.
different stories, but my sleep was good. I'm grateful for that. Naps aren't that as well as other people have experienced, but nighttime's amazing.
That's good.
Yeah, we have a similar experience. And last night, this kid slept like a rock.
Wow.
Like this might have been her best night of sleep, but it's like maybe one of her best all time. Like this will rank until she's like
A
30 because she was
PR.
just this is a
Your
PR,
personal record.
100%. So thankful for that, and I'm glad you got some sleep too.
Yeah, my son was very similar in the fact, like, so we had the snooze, so especially in the first few months, I mean, he was sleeping very well. Like we would have to wake him up to eat, and he didn't want to get up. So I think it's maybe this new breed of baby that's like, we trying to get our sleep in because
December babies.
yeah, December babies, but any post-COVID baby,
Post-COVID
there's a
baby.
post-COVID and a pre-COVID. Any post-COVID baby, it's a new world for them
It's
right
sleeping. Yeah,
now. They're like, we're trying to get some rest, y'all.
that's funny to think. Man, so we did want to talk about names a little bit, which is a big like confusing part of having a kid.
Yeah.
Unless you just know, unless you're like, my dad was named, this is gonna be Junior, this is gonna be my grandma's maiden name, but there's also a bit of compromise
Hmm.
in in the naming. So like this for you, Tony, too. Who took the lead in naming your kid? You, your partner, your parents or in-laws, did they have a lot of input?
Funny you say that because I was at a wedding in Portugal last year, and a friend of mine, he plays soccer, plays for Portugal and stuff like that. And we were there, and in their culture, they have like a limited amount of names they could pick from.
Oh wow.
Right.
So you can't go like October or Lake, you know what I mean? Right? Like they have like specific names that they could pick from. I'm like, wow. So a lot of people would be like Ricardo or like, certain things like that, which I thought was amazing. And but on my side, so we have a 5-month-old named Romeo.
Yeah.
Romeo Eze Oliver Marcellin. Um, Romeo, I mean, Shakespeare is British. My wife is British, so I guess
Yeah.
Shakespeare is British. But I don't know. It just came to me. I never had like a thing to name it, and we play with a few names. That thing where we play with Roman, and I was like, I know 2 Romans, and then they aren't good people.
Right,
All right, we
right.
did that thing, and it just nothing else hit. So we just stuck with it, like just it is associated with love and uh
Yeah.
nothing bad. And we did want to go with a couple other names that could mean something. So as in Nigerian, which my background is, means king, and that was
Mm.
cool to have that, like as a nice easy name there. Some people say easy, and nope, it says a. And
As a
and then my wife's grandma passed a few days before he was born, and
Oh.
her name is Olive. And we wanted to tribute her to Olive, so it was like Oliver. So he's Romeo Eze Oliver Marcellin.
That's so cool, man. And side note, your name Darius Marcellin is like super powerful too. Like I told my wife, like I feel like you should be a character on Bridgerton, like just fighting for the
100%.
queen's daughter's affection. Like I am
Yeah.
Darius Marcellin from the House
The
Marcellin.
House Marcellian,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. So like, so you
Game
already
of
got
Thrones.
a good name set in for
That's
him. So
funny.
Romeo Marcellin, that's already, he's destined for greatness.
Yeah, no, that's funny. How did you guys? How did you guys navigate the names in that situation?
So for us, there was a lot of kind of back and forth. So the funniest thing is, I told Aaron this before, like we thought we were having a girl, so we had a bunch of like cool girl names, like Nova and all these like cool different kind of one-off names. Then we found out we were having a boy. Like, okay, well we have to switch it up, and we kind of went through a couple. And she said, do I want to have a third? Because I'm a junior as well. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. Let's go with the individual route. And my wife who actually we were just throwing around names and she said Legend. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. Like that's just a cool name. Like Legend Anthony Ragg, like the initial spell LAW, the law, like I could see
Oh,
him being an
wow.
athlete or like, he going places. So
Yeah,
it
he's
was just
gonna be
one of those
something
things
one
like,
day.
yeah, it's just one of those things, just like, a cool name, something unique. It's our journey and we wanted to, make it special. So nothing really in depth about, grandparents or anything like that. It's just Legend.
Yeah. And we wanted to have, I actually wanted to make up a name.
Yeah.
I was like, like all these names are made up, but you look at like Beyonce, Kanye, Shaquille, like something really unique that nobody else would have. But I actually couldn't think of anything. And my partner wanted something with some meaning. We were both looking for something with meaning. And we both have names. What do you call it? A name that is a boy or a girl's name.
Like a
Mm,
dual,
Like,
I don't know, dual purpose for
yeah,
lack of, I don't know. Yeah. Dual
whatever.
gender.
Like my
yeah.
name is Aaron, so it's like just spell it differently. It's a girl. So
Yeah.
I think it was really important for my partner that the kid, once we knew we were having a girl, especially had not a name that defined her in a specific way, because her name doesn't, and she doesn't, didn't want to lock it down like that. So we ended up with Jordan. And then there was a lot of significance when we were looking up about like the history of the Jordan River. And then they found all these like swords in the river. Like after we got pregnant, and she had the tattoo of a sword. And we were like,
Hmm.
there was a lot of these just like random connections that we were finding
Right.
that let us settle on that name. And then when she presented it to me, she was like, also, you like Michael Jordan. So it's like the same. I
That's
was
what I
like,
thought.
okay,
That's
That's the
what I
first
thought
thing
it
that
was
came to
from.
my head.
yeah. I was like, I'll take it if that's what,
So
you know,
there's what you can't see from Aaron sitting down is Aaron's like 6'8". So it's like he got a daughter named Jordan,
yeah.
father super tall,
Big
like
shoes to
she
fill.
yeah, she got big shoes to fill. So like yeah, she going places
What is
too.
so cool though is like I feel like even with a name like Jordan is just I don't know. I feel there's a way that you could put the fight of Jordan in there. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like like the Oliver like Daniel's grandma. She was like a fighter. And I was like, oh, that's the Olive in you right there, Oliver. And like with Jordan, I just feel too. And I feel like you could always like attach symbolism
Yeah.
to her character and her
Yeah.
resilience. I mean,
If
Jordan was a winner.
Yeah.
he
Like
was the ultimate winner. Like,
all
let's
the
go,
ultimate
man.
winner. So no, and it's cool, like, just kind of going back into what Aaron had said about like celebrities and baby names. Like as research for this, I started to look at like the craziest baby names that celebrities have. We got the Blue Ivies, the Apple, Moxie Crime Fighter.
Wow.
Yeah, no, okay, no, Lyra Art and Antarctica, Pilot, Inspector, Beautiful Zeppelin.
Inspector.
Yeah, yeah. Pilot Inspector, and Inspector is spelled differently. And then the craziest one, of course, Elon Musk kids, whatever the hell he named them, like
Yeah.
XAE A12. Like
Wow.
it's like this generation. I think it's trying to just like establish individualism within the
Mm,
kids, like from early on. Like you're gonna be an individual
It's
no matter
funny.
you like it or not.
yeah.
It's funny. Even like, American white people were like, we're tired of Johns and Jacobs
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
Sarahs. We
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
they
they
like,
are.
let's
They are
mix it
tired
up.
of it.
It's really interesting. I was gonna say, Blue Ivy is interesting for me personally because my dad's name was actually Ivy.
Oh wow.
How
Ivy
was it spelled?
James, Ivy,
Hmm.
like poison ivy. So, and he was a third, but I did
Hmm.
a little bit of ancestry on the app. And the first Ivy was actually, I think it was somebody's initials, and it was just recorded IV, Covington.
Wow.
And then the next kid was named Ivy as one name. So
Yeah,
it's kind of a mistake through slave records or whatever, you know
Yeah.
what I
yeah.
mean? That
And,
carried on through generations, and then it stopped with me.
and
Oh,
isn't like
wow.
IV like the Roman numerals for fourth too?
Yeah,
So
that's
like
what I was
it could have been
thinking
the fourth.
too.
Like again,
He might have
with
just
some of
been
these,
yeah,
yeah, some of
exactly.
these records, you just don't know what they meant by what they wrote down because again, they were not that educated. That it was
Yeah.
there's definitely some translation there for sure. But yeah, it's really crazy. And I did some research. Like I didn't realize Prince, like Prince Rogers Nelson, he was named after his dad. His dad's stage name. So his dad's name was like John Nelson or something like that. But he went by the stage name of Prince Rogers. I'm like, that's
Nice.
cool. So like Prince is like the first person that I personally associate with like having that like crazy name, but like they lived up to like greatness. And then
They
you have
lived
the
up to it,
Shaqs, the
yeah.
Kobe's, the Tigers, and things
Yeah.
like that. So it's really funny to kind of see how names can sometimes correlate to that level of
Tiger
success.
is a crazy name when you think about it,
Yeah.
especially to be 40 years ago or whatever. I put my
Yeah,
kid,
super
That's
crazy.
yeah,
what I'm thinking too. Yeah, because I feel like there's like a sort of a rebel mentality in our generation from like
Yeah,
maybe a little bit before, in the 70s and 60s, and it may have passed down into us where like, we don't want to do the regular thing. But
yeah.
me, I experience a lot of European culture where it's still very conservative, and you could see like they aren't very rebellious. They will put,
mm,
like they will do the same, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, and I wonder if it's a significance of showing like, oh, we want a change or we want something different or like, we're not standing up for the same, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
like when I look, 'cause I'm in the soccer space and I look at all these, different countries, it's kind of the same. But then when you look at us, we kind of fight for change.
We
Yeah,
fight for change.
Americans, we're fighters for forever. Like we always try to mess stuff up. Like like we will not be the status quo. Like we will change
Yeah.
all the kids' names.
Where are you now, Darius?
I'm in LA, just
Hmm.
You're in
yeah,
LA.
in
Okay,
the middle of
so
LA.
what was your journey to get to LA, in brief? Because you played soccer, and where did you play soccer?
All right, in brief, oh man, born in
I know
Trinidad,
it's like your whole life story. Like,
born
In
in
two
Trinidad
two
and
sentences or
Tobago,
less.
in the
yeah,
capital city of Port of Spain, which is like the whole country is like a crazy paradigm because it's like the Spanish took over, the French took over, the British took over. So the capital is
right.
called Port of Spain. And then I grew up in a town called Petit Boug, which is French. And
Hmm.
then my overall city was San Juan, right? And then everyone had British names. So
Yeah,
it's a really weird play when you get there and you're like, what's going on? But a lot of people mix. It was like a mini New York back in the days when people came over. And I was there till teens, and my mom did the whole, moving to America for better thing before we went. Then I went there. I played like Trinidad, like on the national team, and then
Hmm.
played D1 college over in St. Francis in New York. It was like the only D1 school. And I just still got to still be with my mom because she moved into New York,
yeah,
mom and dad. And then played in New York for a bit, but then I started entrepreneurship while I was like rapping college. And like my first business, like my junior year, my companies are like some crazy numbers. And I was like, soccer players were paid like 20K a year back then. And I was like, I had some of my buddies going to the draft and like they made like 19K. I mean, now the minimum is like, I think a kid from LA Galaxy got like 75K a year,
Oh
15 years
wow.
old.
yeah,
Uh,
Wow.
so people like 15-year-olds are making like 3x that. But I guess it helped
right.
that journey. I had a big events and nightlife company in New York. I worked with like a top celebrities. I did a lot of events. And then for 12 years. And then I moved out to LA actually on a pilot because I
Hmm.
always did like TV and stuff. I did stage and theater and stuff like that in New York. Just on the lows, I never told anyone I was doing it. It was just like my thing, my passion. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, let me just try like scripted stuff. And then booked a show out there, filmed the pilot, and then I just moved out here 7 years ago. So
Nice.
2017, I moved to LA. It's been an amazing journey. most downs I've ever had in my life because I left everything behind, amazing life, moved out on a whim. And I'm
Right.
so glad that like I dealt with those downs because then I wouldn't have Romeo today.
Yeah. No, man, that's a very powerful story, and it's cool. So I'll be honest, I did a little bit of social media stalking of you before, just to learn a little bit about you. And
Yeah.
I saw that you had put that clip of Trevor Noah about talking about the Trinidad people, and he mentioned you. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, Darius, like
I
nobody
Wow.
from
didn't
the
know he
Caribbean
was
has
doing
ever
that. He
taken
was like,
over.
come to the show, and I get there, and I'm like, I guess I never even seen. I got introduced to him back maybe like 2014 or 15 from his ex-girlfriend, and we were like, oh yeah, well, he's moving to LA type of thing, and I didn't know who he was, or he didn't have the Daily Show or anything, so it was like, oh, we're just hanging out. He's like, come to my show, and I didn't know it was gonna be a lot of people. You know, when you have a friend in comedy,
Yeah.
and they're like, come to your
Yeah,
show.
Yeah.
And it was filming for Netflix, and I was like, what the hell?
yeah.
You were like, oh, you're a guy. You're
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
And you
yeah.
made
I
a
was like,
joke
this is
about
no
him
big
on the show,
deal.
which is really funny. It was actually, I remember that special. And I remember that joke. Like, that is true. Nobody from the Caribbean ever tries to take over. So
No, we're just
that's
chilling
funny.
there.
But also, I noticed in December, you stopped posting, which is right around the time you stopped, you already had a kid. So I was like, that's probably the same time. Like, you know what? I'm done with posting for a while. Now it's on to fatherhood and life. So I'm sure that's been a amazing journey for you so far as well.
Yeah, I I feel like I have friends who have kids, and I know tons of people with kids, but no one gives you the real deal.
right.
No one tells you that like the
Yeah.
first, like no one. It sounds stupid, but the first 2 weeks you're like, it's 8 times a day of poop. I'm like, no one said this. Like, prepare me for this experience. No, I could do it, but I did not know I had to pack 90 minutes before I left home, and he might poop before. So no, you
Mhm.
have to like I'm like, no one says this. They're like, oh, it's hard and it's beautiful and special.
I,
But then
I
it's
think
like,
that is the thing that's missing is like guys need a practical, you know what I mean, a practical handbook. Like it's gonna be like this is what every 2 hours means, like when your baby is hungry, when your baby is gonna sleep, and this is what it means. Like if you're gonna go out, you have to have take your diaper bag, take the stroller.
Mhm.
You need this kind of stroller. Like these companies make this exact kind of stroller that you're gonna need. It's the best for the first month or whatever. We don't.
you guys drop in the description, you guys for the
Right?
Amazon.
Yeah, it's just
Because it's crazy.
it's
Bunch of
just all
products.
generalities. Like, oh, when they smile at you, but they can't smile for 2 months. They don't even know their face is just doing things that's not. They have no control.
Yeah, it's so funny.
So
It's one of those things like you just don't know it till you actually experience it for yourself. And that's kind of how this podcast has started. Because Aaron's daughter is about 5 months. My son just turned 3 last weekend, and we were just talking, having these conversations, just all the time. And it's like Aaron said we should do a podcast about this because there is no space where dads can get together and just talk about the real things that are happening in life, and everything's happening to us that it's different stories, but it's the same circumstances, and just how we portray them and how we see them. So that's why we wanted to have this podcast, have people like you come on and just really talk
So
about it and be
helpful.
real about it.
So helpful. So helpful.
We appreciate it.
what has like, you know, what are some of the changes in your life that have been maybe that you didn't expect?
Great question.
Mhm.
I think, wow. I think, wow, that's a really great question because I love to like give the right answer and
Oh yeah,
the
just be
honest
real,
answer.
don't worry
Yeah.
about this.
I
Yeah, because
think biggest changes I would see is I think your ego levels drop like a bit. You have to like your ego will drop, because I think if type of person who grew up and you want to provide and just be that amazing father, partner, your ego has to drop a lot
Yeah.
because it's to me I genuinely feel like the relationship between my wife and I is a harder road to walk than my son and I because
Hmm.
I want to be there to support her, and she's going through things that she's never been through.
right,
I'm going through things I've never been through,
Yeah.
and now we want to provide. No, for him, it's like it's basic, right? It's
Yep.
not easy, but it's basic, right? but to navigate and to go through the changes that we're going through and we've never experienced before, it's brand new. So it's, to me, the hardest part is like allowing your ego to be okay. Like even if like turning off the light wasn't the most, craziest thing at that time. No, this is my partner is now experiencing this part of life for the first time, and you need to have kindness and patience and no, it's not about you. So for me, I think it's the biggest thing was like an ego change, right? And
Yeah.
where you would be like, hey, it's like checking that in and be like, look, it's not about you, it's about a team in general. And
Yeah.
it's not about you being a leader or alpha. It's like it's a team, it's a squad.
And one thing that I noticed about that is like, okay, so you know, a guy and his two partners, you and your partner, anybody, live together and they have a bad day, you have a good day, that you have a good day, they have a bad day. You never really know what happened. I think the baby makes it so clear because if you have a good or a bad day, especially early on when you're both at home, you know why. So
Hmm.
it's kind of easier to understand another point of view. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like for me, especially early on, the babies are so attached to their moms.
Hmm.
So like if I'm holding her and she starts screaming and I can't calm her down, then I give her to her mom and she calms down, then her mom knows why I might be frustrated in that moment, as opposed to like, oh, something happened at work, I'm not ready to talk about. So I think you increase sympathy when you know exactly why the other person is tired or upset, or you both went through it for the same reason. It's almost as if like if you played soccer on a national team, if these teams were co-ed, you know, and you had to go through two-a-days with your partner and thing, that
Yeah.
forms a bond that's different than just loving somebody or living with somebody, you know? You're really going through something together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figuring life out together for the first time.
Yeah.
And like you had said, kind of going back to the ego thing, and also that selfishness, because again, we're all guys here. We were probably all in LA right around the same time in 2021, 2022. And so like, it's a very different lifestyle having a kid and understanding like you can't do the same things. Like you might want to go out, Aaron does stand-up comedy. Like you might want to go out to a show, it's gonna be late night. You can't necessarily do the same things you were doing before. You might want to go to the gym or, go out with friends to the bar. Like it's
But
very
I was
much
thinking
a
like, could I take the baby to a stand-up show?
you
Like
could,
just,
yeah.
maybe strap her on, maybe have the carrier and then just be like, look, I gotta do these jokes. She's gonna be here, you know.
Some comedian was just saying that they did that. I forgot what comedian it was. Like they had their kid in the back, like in all the green rooms and all the comedian. I forgot what.
Yeah.
It's like a famous comedian too that said that they did that because they had to,
You
and
gotta do what you gotta do.
you gotta do what you gotta do. But I mean, like I said, it very much changes just the how you operate, as a single guy, and then you get into the relationship, then you have a partner. You still are
Yeah,
able to have some flexibility with just a partner, like, your partner does her thing and you do your thing sometimes on
yeah,
certain nights. Now you have that baby, like there isn't that, oh, now I have all this extra free time. Like I was
yeah,
telling my friend, like, the new NCAA football games coming out this year, and like I love college football. But I'm like, I'm not gonna have any time to play it. Like, I don't have an extra hour to play a
yeah.
couple of games. Like that extra hour goes to
Well,
either working on my relationship with my wife or spending time with my kid. And like that's it.
Exactly.
So it's very different, for sure.
That's the biggest thing there, Aaron. And I think, I mean, we could look at it and like just hop over it and be like, that changes or you're giving that up, but it's a part of, I think is a genuine good great quality in
Yeah.
men to observe that and be like, look, I could give that hour to this, or I could give it to building on something there. You know what I mean? And I think
yeah.
it just kind of reflects on the type of father or partner you want to be.
Yeah.
So I think
It
that's where
forces
we're
you
at.
to grow. Like definitely
And I
forces you to have to grow.
well, I think as men, we're often trying to atone for the past in a way.
Yeah.
So like there's a number of things. There's still some things I look back on that I experienced with my father that I'm like, he was right about this, or this was a good thing. And there's other things where it's like, you know, that I would definitely try not to do, right? So are there any things that come to mind for you where you're like, my dad was great at this, or, I want to be there in a different way than my dad was?
Yeah, so I actually didn't grow up knowing my dad,
Mhm.
I still don't know my biological dad. And
Well,
part of
that's fascinating because that brings up a whole nother level of
I
like,
know that's what came into my mind when
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna bring a whole new level to it, because it was I was raised in a household of women back in Trinidad, and everyone was just super working hard, and I felt like I didn't have someone there to be at the games or help me play soccer or stuff like that. And I worked on my own on the wall, and just I might have seen the World Cup or something and just been like, all right, this is what I want to do. And it's like I use my imagination a lot, and and I wonder if me wanting to be there and everything is just like the innate thing in my body to respond to that. Me genuinely, I just like, if this is my responsibility and I want to be the best as I could possibly be, that's how I want to show up in everything. I
yeah,
wonder if that's like a part, like an innate thing in my body to be like, oh no, you go do this because somebody wasn't there for you. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I wonder if it was that. What do you guys think?
And so it's crazy because sometimes you do see that from that struggle comes your biggest triumph. And I mean we can talk about all day about how athletes or actors or musicians use that, like, kind of that deepest pain, even knowingly or unknowingly, to get them to accomplish some of those
Mhm.
greatest feats. And you see that a lot, especially in sports, where like, oh, I want to do this in spite of my of my circumstances. So that's very, I think that is probably how a driving force behind that drive.
no,
Yeah.
totally. And I definitely didn't mean to assume, but I know that whether, you know, we all have a dad issue, even if, especially if you weren't raised with a father. And I do think that
Yeah.
that desire to be there that you have with the success that you have, like you were asking, is that just in you? I think it is just in you. I
Yeah.
think that's just like how you're built, as we like to say, which is also a testament to our generation, where we're trying to evolve fatherhood, I would say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like we're
It-
trying to define what does it mean now, what does it mean? What does
Yeah.
it mean to
like,
be there every day and to change just as many diapers as,
yeah.
the mom has to.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I would even like touch on to say I had friends who like when you become a father is the most amazing thing in your life. Like your life will change right away. And for me, I my first 8 to 10 weeks, I did not feel super, super connected. I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? Let me just lock in to
Yep.
support my wife. My wife was like waking up at like flying out of bed at 3. I'm like, where? I was like, I'm not built like that. Like she like flies. Like she would just teleport into the other room. And I'm like, how did you wake up and fly that fast? And then I like lagging in. Like if when your internet is slow and like I'm like behind chipping. I'm like, how did
Dial
you
up.
get here? She's like, go to bed. Like, and I'm like, whoa. But so I just looked at it as like not as you said before, like an emotional thing of like, oh, I should be this, but more, let me just be the support. And as time goes on now, like Romeo and I, like, we have our routine. Some mornings, like
Hmm.
we would like interchange whoever like wakes up to do the first wake at 6:30. And my routine is like I'll pick him up, we open his window, he looks at the trees, we do a quick change, we go downstairs, play some music at the bottle end, and we just chill and we hang. And and when the way that I look at it, I was like, I didn't feel disconnected. I think as time goes by, and maybe it's different for everyone, but I didn't feel super connected at first.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so much pressure from people to say, like, yeah, right away, you'll feel
Right.
this. And if you don't, but there's no if you don't, right? And for me,
Yeah.
I didn't feel that. And luckily I didn't turn it to myself. And I want anybody who's listening to not feel that way. It's not like you care less. It's just sometimes I'm like, wait, I have a kid?
Hmm.
What?
Yeah. It's kind of a shock. And I do think for me too, early on, it's like, let me just support and help. If I can establish a routine, even amongst the baby's unpredictableness, like I can do that. And I just got to keep this kid alive. And then as they develop more, I'm sure your kid at almost 6 months now is like, actually laughing almost, and like even doing things where you're like, you did that on purpose, and starting to try to crawl, and then you become more, as a dad, you just become more connected, where the mom was connected, physically, literally
Exactly.
for so
So,
long.
so it's really funny that you guys both say that because mine was a little bit different because, like I said, we thought we were having a girl. So when we found out we were having a boy, my wife was like really like depressed. So I was like, she might not love this thing, so I have to. So like I was like all in, like, okay, I'm gonna love him like extra for two parents. And once we had the baby, obviously, she loved him as well. But it was really funny, like my whole mindset going in, like, okay, just in case something happens and she's not like really into this dude, like I gotta be there. So like,
Hmm.
she was always, still getting up first and things like that. But I was always like very cognizant, like, okay, make sure she's not overwhelmed and stressed because I want to make sure she loves this dude at the end. So it was really
Yeah,
funny.
man, that's a trip.
Yeah. Oh
Just
yeah, no, yeah, I mean, but it's a thing. Like when I forgot what the technical term is for it, but like when you assume, like when you think you're having one sex, and it ends up being the other. Like there is that a little bit of time where you have like a little bit of depression and like you're feeling
Right.
like
Oh, really?
you feel like you lost the baby that you thought you were gonna have, but
oh
then you
yeah,
end up getting the baby
totally.
that you need. And yeah, I mean, I wanted to grow at first, but then when I saw my legend, I was like, oh no, this like he's dope. Like I'm telling you guys, like when you get to like 2 and 3, like life is so dope. Like I mean, he knows like his world, his routine. Like he helps out throughout the house. Like it's not like you have a
That's so
baby anymore. You
cool.
have like you have a child that actually is part of the family. Like you actually feel like this year it'd be the first summer that I feel like we can go out to the beach. Like we're going to the San Diego. I'm in San Diego. We're going to the San Diego Fair this weekend, and like we're actually gonna do things because he can like grab his own, his own bottle or his own drinks and things like that. He's potty
That's
trained, so
cool.
yeah, it they become
Yeah,
more part of the family than just like not necessarily a burden, but like a thing that
Like
you
I said,
take
yeah.
care of.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I can see that too. Like you can see the development of it as they start to reach for their own independence, like start to move more, start to get a stronger back, and it's like, oh, okay, this kid wants to do things, has their own
Yeah,
mind.
he definitely like like he could see me with like we connect, we laugh, like I yeah, I definitely see that bond. And most people say enjoy this stage, don't like savor it. Like he's not running away anywhere yet. I mean, he is
Yeah,
crawling now, so I put him down. He's like going, um, but I control the narrative for now.
Yeah,
So they say enjoy it, and
very much so. That's a great way to put it. You control the
yeah,
narrative.
but the first 8 week, 8 to 10 weeks, it didn't feel like part of me. Yeah.
Mhm.
I still, to be honest with you, I still don't feel like I feel like he's family now and he's like in. I'm like, it's so hard for me to believe. Like, my first kid, I'm like, oh, is he like, like I guess maybe till he looks like me, and I'm like, oh, like, he has like a wave cut or something. Or something. We have the same haircut and we dress the
Right.
same. Like you see some people doing that, I'm like, all right, he's mine. But
Got the same
it just feels
nose.
so
Yeah.
surreal, and the part of like 5 months, like it doesn't feel like real yet for me.
What you're gonna really realize is once they start interacting, like seeing, because they're always watching, but then once they start, mimicking you, you're gonna
Mm,
see his
okay, okay.
personality in you. He's gonna see, you're gonna see some of your wife's person. Like it's literally a 50-50 mix of both
Okay.
of you. So the
yeah.
mannerisms that you have that you might not even know and pay attention
Right.
to, you're gonna start to see that, like the
No,
words and the phrases. Like it's very funny.
definitely.
Like yeah,
A guy told me he was like about a year and a half. He was pushing his daughter in the stroller. They were at something, the park, and she just turned to him and she was like, "Can we go home?" And he was like, for some reason, that was like the moment for him. And he
yeah,
said this was like a little over a year in, so it's definitely,
yeah.
you know, just part of the journey. I think in connecting with
That
them
is
and
hilarious. I agree with what you're saying there.
accepting them as more than just a responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's part of the
Yeah.
family. Like it would be a family member. Like go to this refrigerator and give me a drink of water. Like okay, and
Yeah.
then come back with a cup of water. Like okay, you can stay.
I think might help too, and I don't know you because Tony, you're ahead. Maybe having dinner together might feel like more of a
Yeah.
family thing, because we don't eat together technically. Like he's starting solids in like a couple weeks. So I guess
Mhm.
Right.
maybe we don't eat together. Maybe I might consider that like when we're I'm not saying it's like you're not family, but like it
No, yeah,
doesn't
they're like
feel
this
real
little
yet.
this
Yeah.
little body that you have to do everything. I think
Yeah.
as they start, because we just started solids this
Yeah.
weekend. Luckily she just was like super hungry for it. She was just like
You
not
just starved her
hesitant at
out
all.
to
Yeah. And but we always kind of had her at the dinner table.
Mhm.
And I think it does help to have those routines and traditions of like we eat together, or you know, a couple times like I'll do her nails and then I'll do mine. So we're like doing
No.
them at the same time. So yeah, just establishing those like almost enforcing connections. And
Yeah.
last thing, like we live in my partner's parents' house with her parents, so there's a lot of connection to the past here. A lot of
Mhm.
things like that she had when she was growing up, or that grandma had. And so there's, when you establish those connections, I think that is something for us
Yeah.
that ties things together, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, especially when you live apart, but maybe there's ways.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like I said, the second they call you, dad, or give you that hug that you didn't ask for, you'll feel the connection.
I'll
I'm
be
gonna tell you
in.
right
I'll be
now.
a tribe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
That's when
like
you're
you
like,
said, right
that's when
now it's
like,
a lot of responsibility without fun, like because you're just keeping alive, you're feeding.
Yeah.
But once you get to kind of a little more balance of you can have fun and it's a little bit less responsibility because they're becoming more independent, then you're gonna start to see that I think that ideal change of the tribe and family, like, oh yeah, this is my son, this is my
well,
daughter. Like, I love
yeah, that's
them.
when you get them on the soccer field and like start running them drills. We got to get
Oh
you
yeah.
ready.
Be
Yeah,
better than me.
we got a soccer star
This
down
was
there, Romeo. We
th-
got a basketball star, and we got a track star. So in
this
about
was great
20
having you.
years, we're
I'm
gonna
gonna
be like,
wrap it up. We'll wrap it up. This was great having you on, Darius, man. Really
yeah, this
appreciate
is
it.
super
Oh,
fun, man.
great to be on. Anytime you guys want, I'll be there. And what you guys are doing are great because I remembered we were weeks out. I was like looking for baby podcasts, and there was one I listened to, and I mean, it wasn't as relatable for me per se, but I listened to anything. I'm trying to get ahead, you know. So
Yeah,
great that you guys are doing this, and I definitely, tuned in to like learn anything I could possibly learn as well too.
Oh,
good,
we
man. We'll try to
appreciate it,
get some more
man.
out here for you, get you back on, man.